if we're going to get into the flaws of the Trump administration, I mean, I think the original sin was something that I've been perfectly open with him and the world about. Americans don't like nepotism. I don't think he should have brought his son-in-law into the White House, and I think a lot of this has to do with him being worried about the investigation going after his son-in-law. I think he's right not to want an independent counsel. There's a reason Congress got rid of the independent counsel law. You can't just have this unaccountable roving commission looking at everything you've ever done. I understand, I feel his pain, I feel his frustration, but no, you shouldn't be posting your own attorney general. If you don't like him, fire him, you're the president. But look, he's done, I don't think that is nearly as bad as the first thing I didn't like that he did, and it's really just about two things, and that was, one of the things we voted for, don't get us involved in any more pointless wars. And that bombing of Syria, again, I see a little nepotism issue here. I mean, the claim in the New York Times and the Washington Post was Ivanka saw some pictures of children and started crying. Oh, daddy, daddy, we have to bomb Syria. So Ivanka cried, kids died. But his base punched back, and at least we are not involved in a war in Syria. And by the way, we would have been in Syria, in Russia, in Iran, if it had been anyone else running for president, with the possible exception of Bernie Sanders. So I would say he's effective. He hasn't gotten us involved in a pointless war, and he is pretty well following through on the immigration stuff. He's pretty well following through on the trade stuff. That's all I care about. I don't care about the tweets. I love the tweets.
All right. So there's quite a bit to jump in on, but the first thing that I want to address is this notion that he is not escalating war abroad, which is completely false. So within the first 3 months of his presidency, he actually escalated some of Obama's foreign policy in the form of drone strikes. In fact, it increased 423%. We are bombing like crazy in places like Yemen. Okay? And this whole notion that, this Muslim ban is trying to keep the terrorists out of the country, doesn't anyone else find it a little strange that Saudi Arabia, one of the countries that was obviously involved in what happened on 9/11, is not part of that Muslim ban? Right? So, I mean, I know that the right wing has been very vociferous in terms of trying to make Saudi Arabia pay some consequences for it. Trump isn't making him pay any consequences because he has financial interest there. I want to go way back to what you said about, legislative wins and policy. When it comes to the issue of immigration, it's kind of fascinating because Obama got a lot of criticism for being soft on immigrants, right? But by the end of 2010, he had allocated $12 billion toward border security, and he had hired 40,000 new border agents. As a result, less undocumented immigrants were coming in, more of them were leaving. Between 2005 and 2010, we actually had 1.5 million undocumented immigrants leave the country, mostly because of economic reasons. The economy in Mexico was starting to do a little better, and people wanted to leave. So there were wins when it came to Obama. He did do things, and he got a lot of criticism from the left when it came to his immigration policy. But the reality is, Donald Trump hasn't done anything yet other than attempt to ban people from some Muslim countries and pretend like he's a tough guy. In reality, he's not a tough guy. He hasn't succeeded in anything, and healthcare is the latest example of that. So the Obama administration certainly did deport more people than the Bush administration, and it was not just people being turned away at the border. I'll give you the numbers, okay? So first of all, the $12 billion that he allocated for border security went toward hiring 40,000 border agents. So it was not to increase the bureaucracy. It was to include or add to what we already had at the border. Now, you mentioned the ICE agents and all the people crying about how mean they are. I'm curious what you think about the border agents that are now being sued by the ACLU for molesting 2 teenage girls who are coming in from Guatemala. Does that make you feel bad at all?
Something else a wall would solve. Again, having border hiring border agents is not keeping illegal immigrants out of the country, and we know that because Obama was welcoming unaccompanied children. What the border agents were doing, this wonderful 40,000 border agents was handing them a pass, putting them on a bus to the interior of the country. That wasn't deportation, it was the welcome force down at the border. You put up a wall, you don't have to worry about paying unemployment, paying workman's comp, they don't have to go to sleep, they don't slack off, they don't molest illegals, the wall just sits there day and night, not having to sleep, eat,
They're
rest.
actually, you know, it's incredibly misleading to say that we need to build a wall, because the fact of the matter is we 100% already have a wall. We have a 2,000-mile long border that we share with Mexico, right? About 1,000 miles are already covered by a wall. The rest, we're talking about a river, and we're talking about treacherous terrain. We're talking about mountains, okay? One of the reasons why he hasn't built the wall yet is because it's almost impossible to build the wall in the areas that we're talking about. There's a ton of issues with building the wall in the remaining area, including US properties. We have resorts, we have US properties that would essentially be divided in half if we continued building that wall. And by the way, it's a gigantic waste of resources. How about our taxpayer money actually go back to us as American people? How about that?
It is a total lie that illegal immigrants do not get all kinds of government assistance. Please do Google that, but don't just look up. Any idiot can write on the internet. Look it up. They can get food stamps, they go into emergency rooms, they get schooling, they get English as a second language, they get the SNAP program. They get full health care in California. It is not saying that illegal immigrants are the little guy. They're not our guys. Americans don't have a problem paying for our own poor, our own sick, our own injured. But the idea is we're like a family. We're all in this together.
Aren't you in favor of welfare reform?
And you say, but, there, but for the grace of God go I. Okay, but you don't get to, this isn't the entire world we're talking about. We're not turning America into, the universe's charity ward. We need to take care of our own. And that's what's hurting the little guy. The reason illegal immigrants say they're coming for family reunification is because that's what got you a free bus pass and a box lunch in the Obama era, whatever they need to say, to be moved into the interior of the country. But this idea that, you can't break up my family. Well, okay, all of you go back then.
I think it's hilarious that you're sitting here saying that you care about taking care of our poor people and spending our taxpayer money on government programs that help our poor people. You've been on the record on multiple occasions talking about how much you hate the welfare state. And so you don't care about taking care of anyone. You care about lower taxes for yourself, and that's pretty much it. And
look, as I just tried to explain, but again, it's like talking to the old Soviet woman who doesn't grasp the free market.
Name-calling
This
is
isn't
super
a question of whether we take care of our poor. And I must say, immigration makes everything harder. And one of the biggest things it makes harder is the distribution of welfare. Look at all of the scams on welfare. Is that going to the poor? No, it's going to the Russians in Brighton Beach, it's going to the Cubans in Miami, it's going to the Arabs up in Michigan. One thing that immigrants, legal and illegal, really have quite a strong proclivity for that is not part of our Native American, even our Native American criminals, are massive financial frauds and government frauds. They don't consider themselves part of our kin, part of our family. It isn't that we're all in this together. America is like Disneyland to these criminals. It is ripping off all of these systems. So to say you want welfare to be distributed in a way that is useful, that helps people, that gives them, allows them to get work and jobs, is not being against helping the poor. It is being for helping the poor.